So just find a place where you can be, either sitting, kneeling, or lying down, or reclining in a chair. Just finding a space where you can feel relaxed easily. And this meditation is going to guide you through establishing yourself in being, in recognizing the inherent space within you, the feeling of spaciousness, and also of attuning to that natural process of knowing. So can you imagine, just as you're sitting here now, right, just as you are, that everything is absolutely perfect. And I don't mean that in the normal sense of the word, where you've got your life sorted with the perfect house, the perfect partner, the perfect body. Rather, despite whatever you've got that's not perfect, everything is just perfect. How can this be? There is nothing that arises from your mind nothing that arises in the external world through any of the senses that's not okay. In the sense that things are just as they are. And as soon as we start to see that, to recognize that, then we can fully relax, fully understand the Dharma, and be free. So let's investigate that right now, in this very moment. As you sit here, in whatever way the body feels comfortable, And the only effort you really need to make, which is not really effort, is just to relax, just to be. And how hard is that? Just to be, just to relax. For so many of us, it's very difficult to just stop and to rest into the stillness, into the quiet. But even if there is a sense of struggle or a difficulty in being able to even do that, that's okay too. We just notice that. But in this very moment, we just allow our minds, our hearts to be open. Can we recognize the spaciousness? Now that's just a word, a pointing to something that's not really a thing. Some people might want to call it emptiness. But be careful of that, because there's so many ideas and connotations around that word. But whatever word, which will always be faulty, limited, whatever word we want to call it, can we just notice here and now that within us that is unformed, that's just knowing, that's simply aware. My teacher calls it Buddho, the one who knows. But when we point to this Buddha or this one who knows, we don't need to imagine a Buddha who's knowing, or a me, a person who's knowing, or any idea or concept of someone or something that knows. There's simply knowing. Simply being. A simple, uncomplicated, uncontrived presence. And once we recognize that, even for just a moment, without trying to hold on, to cling on to it, to manufacture it, to simply recognize it. Then can you recognize from out of this empty space, things arise. Everything in the phenomenal world, the so-called external or internal world, arises and ceases within the space of this empty knowing. But let's look more carefully, more intently at what arises, at what ceases. If you take the sound of my voice, for example, just as a start to investigate this sound, what is it? We assume we know. We take it for granted. But this sound, Can you hold it? Can you draw it? Can you really explain what this sound is? Can you grasp it? In essence, in its true essence, it's really nothing. Nothing you can hold on to. But on the other level, it's something. You know it. You hear it. Or rather, it is heard. It is experienced. And a thought as an example. Have you ever looked really closely at just one single thought? What is it? Where is it? Who is it? Gone in a flash. Comes in an instant. Gone in a flash. Nothing to show for it. Like a tiny flicker of light in the mind's awareness. But even that's giving it too much material substance. Substanceless, empty, ephemeral. They're nothing. And yet, there's something. And they become so big, so problematic, so serious when we claim them as me and mine and true and right. And yet, really, in essence, they're nothing. and nothing in the sense that they don't truly exist. They don't exist as a separate entity, as a separate something, as a material form or shape or self. And yet, we know them as an experience. So what's perfect about all this, you say? It's perfect because nothing that arises, in essence, truly exists. No sound, no thought, no smell, no sight, and no feeling. If you apply that same investigative mind to all of the senses, to really look from that state of knowing, from that state of the Buddha, from the still, clear mind, you can see how everything in the phenomenal world is completely substanceless, empty, and devoid of a self-nature. Everything simply bubbles and passes away, flowing like a river, a ceaseless river, in this space of silent awareness. It's not separate from this silent, still awareness. It simply rises within that space, And so, really, if nothing in the phenomenal world is really true, is really real, where's the problem? There cannot be any problem. If there's no one there and nothing there, that says it's a problem. And even that's not a problem. So I don't know if any of this has made any sense. But I guess what I've been trying to say is that there's nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing to get, no one to pretend to be, no need to change anything. Because where we are right now is where we will always be, have always been, will always be. And all that phenomenal sun shower is just a play and a display. And if we can continuously rest without striving or effort to do so, to just gently, wisely, lovingly come back into our hearts, where we know that still, quiet presence. That's our home, our true home. And what arises and ceases within the space of that is not separate from it, is not even real. So if we don't grasp onto that, conceptualize it, concretize it, solidify it, identify as it, then it can all just pass away, just bubbling, bubbling, bubbling. Because that movement, that grasping towards anything within the phenomenal world is samsara. And the spinning starts. The cycle of births and deaths continue. So the letting go, the relinquishing, the seeing through, and the giving up, and the relaxing out of, not out of aversion, but out of wisdom, out of seeing with clear insight that none of this is me or mine. None of it has any lasting substance. None of it can bring lasting satisfaction. And ultimately, none of it is real. It's simply like shadow puppets. So we can actually develop a friendly attitude with it. be more light about it. And to see whatever arises like a dream. Dreamlike in its transparency, in its substanceless nature. That it is ephemeral. And that what arises is apparent without truly existing. And we can just accept things we can understand them just as the way things are. And when we notice more the space within which this is all appearing, and recognize the natural knowing, the spacious nature of the mind, we can learn to rest here. Because we recognize it and we know the true, unchanging, unformed, undying space within us. And this is our true refuge, our true home. This is what we can rest into over and over again. And in this moment, we recognize that that's all there is.